The stars had been quiet for too long. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and looked out at the endless black space filled with distant lights. He had been waiting for 3 days now for orders from Earth Command, and when they finally came through the communication system, he knew his life was about to change forever. The message was short and direct. Admiral Kate Sullivan's voice crackled through the speakers with the usual military tone that meant business. Earth Colonial Fleet had a new mission for him and his crew. They were to take their ship, the New Horizon, deep into space where no human had ever been before. The destination was a place that every alien race in the galaxy called the Forbidden Zone. Morrison had heard stories about this region of space since he was a young officer. It was a massive area filled with dangers that killed ships and crews without warning. Wormholes appeared and disappeared like deadly traps. Gravity wells pulled vessels apart before anyone could react. Dark matter storms raged for years at a time, making navigation impossible. The zone stretched across thousands of star systems, and every empire in the galaxy had learned to avoid it completely. The 5 great powers that controlled most of the known galaxy had tried to explore the Forbidden Zone many times over the centuries. The Zephyrians with their crystal ships and advanced technology had lost entire fleets. The Nethans, who lived in the gas clouds around giant planets, had sent their best navigators into the zone and never heard from them again. The Korvac hive mind had tried to overwhelm the dangers with massive numbers of ships, but even their collective intelligence could not find safe paths through the chaos. The energy beings called Luminari had attempted to pass through as pure light, but even they were scattered and destroyed by the zone's strange forces. The aquatic thalassans had built special vessels designed to handle any environment, but these too were crushed by the impossible physics that ruled in that cursed region of space. Now Earth Command wanted humans to succeed where all these ancient and powerful civilizations had failed. Morrison read the orders again and shook his head. His mission was to establish a permanent research station on the outer edge of the Forbidden Zone. The goal was to study the anomalies and find ways to map safe passages through the dangerous region. It sounded like a death sentence wrapped in official military language. Morrison called his senior officers to the briefing room. Dr. Lisa Park arrived first, carrying her usual stack of scientific journals and data tablets. She was the best science officer in the fleet, with a mind that could solve problems other people could not even understand. Her specialty was spatial anomalies, which made her perfect for this mission and also made Morrison worried about what they might face out there. Roy Chen came in next, wiping grease off his hands with a dirty cloth. The chief engineer was famous throughout the fleet for being able to fix anything and build solutions out of spare parts and determination. If their ship ran into trouble in the Forbidden Zone, Roy would be the one to get them home alive. Beth Williams entered the room with a confident stride that made her seem taller than she actually was. The navigator had guided ships through asteroid fields, solar storms, and hostile alien territory without ever losing her way. Her ability to find paths where others saw only obstacles had earned her a reputation as the best pilot in human space. The last to arrive was Alex Turner, the communications officer who could speak 17 different alien languages and had a gift for understanding the meaning behind words that others missed. His job would be to monitor all the alien chatter about their mission and keep Earth informed of their progress. Morrison looked at his team and felt a mixture of pride and concern. These were some of the best people humanity had to offer, but were they good enough to survive what lay ahead? The briefing materials from Earth Command painted a grim picture of what they would face. Scanned data from the edge of the Forbidden Zone showed readings that made no scientific sense. Space itself seemed to bend and twist in ways that violated every law of physics that humans understood. The mission files also contained intelligence reports from alien sources. Morrison was not surprised to learn that the other galactic empires were watching this human expedition with great interest. Intercepted communications showed that most alien leaders expected the New Horizon to be destroyed within days of entering the dangerous region. Some had even placed bets on exactly how long the human crew would survive. The Korvac embassy had sent a formal protest to Earth Command, claiming that sending humans into the Forbidden Zone was a waste of resources that could be better used elsewhere. The Zephyrians had offered to sell Earth detailed maps of all their failed expeditions into the zone, maps that showed nothing but death and destruction. Even the usually neutral Luminari had warned human diplomats that this mission would likely end in tragedy. But Earth Command had made the decision anyway. Admiral Sullivan had been clear in her orders. Humanity needed to prove that it belonged among the great powers of the galaxy. The other empires saw humans as newcomers who had not earned their place at the Galactic Council table. This mission was a chance to show that human determination and ingenuity could succeed where alien technology and ancient wisdom had failed. Morrison dismissed his officers and told them to prepare for departure. They had 72 hours to get the New Horizon ready for a journey into the most dangerous region of known space. As he watched his crew hurry off to their duties, Morrison wondered if he was leading brave explorers toward glory or simply taking good people to their deaths. In 3 days they would find out which one it would be. The unknown was waiting for them, and unlike every other empire in the galaxy, humans were about to embrace it instead of running away. The New Horizon had been traveling through space for 3 weeks when everything changed. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge watching. The stars ahead grew dimmer as they approached the outer edge of the Forbidden Zone. His crew had been working around the clock to prepare their instruments and systems for whatever they might encounter. Now the moment of truth was finally here. Dr. Lisa Park looked up from her science station with excitement and worry mixed on her face. Her sensors were picking up readings that should have been impossible. Space itself was bending in ways that made her equipment give contradictory information. Gravity was pulling in 6 different directions at once. Time seemed to slow down and speed up randomly. The very fabric of reality was twisted into shapes that hurt to think about. Beth Williams tried to plot a course through the anomaly, but her navigation computer kept crashing every few minutes. The mathematical equations that described normal space travel simply did not work here. She had to shut down the automated systems and rely on manual controls, flying the ship by instinct and feel rather than by the numbers that had always guided her before. Roy Chen monitored the ship's engines and life support systems with growing concern. The New Horizon was built to handle the stresses of normal space travel, but nothing about this region was normal. The hull was experiencing forces that should have torn the ship apart, yet somehow they were still in one piece. He made constant adjustments to keep everything running, making up new solutions as problems appeared faster than he could solve them. Alex Turner listened to communications from the galactic empires with growing amazement. Every alien race was broadcasting warnings about the dangers ahead. The Korvac were transmitting detailed records of their losses in this region 800 years ago. The Zephyrians were sharing technical data about how their crystal hulls had been shattered by unknown forces. All of them were telling the humans to turn back before it was too late. But Morrison had no intention of turning back. He ordered his crew to push deeper into the anomaly, using methods that no alien race had ever tried before. Instead of fighting against the twisted physics of this region, they began to work with it. Dr. Park discovered that human intuition could solve problems that alien computers could not handle. Where alien logic saw only chaos and death, human creativity found patterns and possibilities. The breakthrough came when they encountered something that defied all explanation. Floating in the middle of the space distortion was a collection of metal debris that looked like the remains of ancient spacecraft. The wreckage was perfectly preserved, as if it had been placed in a bubble where time did not pass normally. Beth carefully maneuvered the New Horizon closer, while Roy scanned the debris with every sensor they had. The results were shocking. The metal fragments contained technology that was clearly Korvac in origin, but it was far older than any Korvac ship currently in service. Dr. Park analyzed the composition and design patterns, comparing them to known Korvac engineering standards. Her conclusion was startling. This wreckage was at least 8 centuries old, dating back to the time when the Korvac had first attempted to explore this region. Alex managed to extract data from the debris using human computer systems that were more flexible than the rigid programs used by other species. The information he recovered painted a picture of massive Korvac fleet that had entered this region with great confidence and advanced technology. They had been the most powerful military force in the galaxy at that time, with ships that could destroy entire planets and mines, that could process information faster than any computer. But even the mighty Korvac had been helpless against the strange forces of the Forbidden Zone. The data logs showed ship after ship being destroyed by phenomena that their science could not explain or predict. Gravity wells appeared without warning and crushed vessels into tiny balls of compressed metal. Wormholes opened directly inside ships and tore them apart from within. Energy storms burned through their shields as if they were made of paper instead of advanced alien alloys. Only one Korvax ship had escaped to tell the story of what happened to the rest of the fleet. The survivor had barely made it back to Korvax space with its hull cracked and its crew traumatized by what they had witnessed. The report they filed had convinced the Korvax leadership to declare this entire region forbidden to all future expeditions. Since then, no Korvax ship had dared to venture this deep into the zone. But as the New Horizon continued its journey, something unexpected happened. The ship's sensors detected a massive cloud of gas and energy that seemed to be moving with purpose rather than drifting randomly through space. The cloud was enormous, stretching across several star systems, and it appeared to be alive in some way that human science could not yet understand. Dr. Park monitored the approaching phenomenon with instruments that were working better than they should have in this twisted region of space. The cloud was generating electromagnetic signals that followed patterns too complex to be natural, but too organic to be artificial. It was as if the nebula itself was trying to communicate with them using a language made of radio waves and particle emissions. Morrison made a decision that would have terrified any alien captain. Instead of avoiding the living cloud, he ordered his ship to move closer to it. The New Horizon entered the outer edges of the nebula, and immediately the communication signals grew stronger and more organized. Alex worked frantically to decode the patterns, using human linguistic skills and pattern recognition that were different from the approaches used by other galactic species. The breakthrough came when Alex realized that the signals were not trying to convey specific words or concepts, but rather emotions and intentions. The cloud was not speaking in any language that could be translated directly. Instead, it was sharing feelings and thoughts through electromagnetic pulses that human brains could interpret in ways that alien minds could not. The message was clear once Alex figured out how to receive it properly. The living nebula had been watching the galaxy for millions of years, observing as different civilizations rose to power and then encountered the mysteries of the Forbidden Zone. Every empire had sent expeditions into this region, and every empire had retreated in fear when their technology and rigid thinking could not overcome the challenges they found here. But now something different had arrived. The nebula had been waiting for a species that would approach the unknown with curiosity instead of fear, with creativity instead of rigid doctrine. It had been hoping to find explorers who would see opportunity where others saw only danger. After countless ages of waiting, it had finally found what it was looking for in the humans who dared to enter its domain. The New Horizon had passed a test that no other species in galactic history had ever passed. They had entered the Forbidden Zone not with overwhelming force or advanced technology, but with open minds and the willingness to adapt to whatever they might find. Now the ancient guardian of this region was ready to share secrets that had been hidden from the galaxy for longer than any current civilization had existed. Admiral Kate Sullivan sat in her office on Earth looking at reports that seemed too incredible to be true. The New Horizon had been in the Forbidden Zone for 2 months now, and instead of being destroyed like every alien expert had predicted, Captain Morrison and his crew were sending back discoveries that were changing everything. Humanity thought they knew about space exploration. The first supply convoy had just returned from delivering equipment to the research station that Morrison's team had successfully established on the edge of the dangerous region. The convoy pilots brought back stories that made Sullivan shake her head in amazement. They spoke of human ships flying through areas where alien vessels would have been instantly destroyed, navigating paths that alien computers said were impossible to survive. More ships were joining the mission every week as word spread through the Earth colonial fleet about what was happening in the Forbidden Zone. Pilots who had spent their careers following safe and predictable routes were volunteering for assignments that took them into the most dangerous region of known space. Engineers were requesting transfers so they could work on the new technologies that Roy Chen and his team were developing using principles they had learned from the zone's strange physics. Dr. Lisa Park's research reports were causing excitement throughout the scientific community on Earth and confusion among alien researchers across the galaxy. She was documenting phenomena that violated every known law of physics. Yet somehow her team was not only surviving these encounters, but actually learning to use them to their advantage. Gravity wells that should have crushed their ships were being used as shortcuts to distant star systems. Energy storms that had destroyed countless alien vessels were being harvested to power human equipment. The breakthrough that changed everything came when Dr. Park discovered the source of the Forbidden Zone's impossible properties. Hidden within the cosmic chaos were the remnants of an ancient civilization that she named the Architects. These beings had deliberately created the dangerous anomalies as a test for younger species who might one day be ready to inherit their knowledge and technology. The Architects had been the most advanced civilization in galactic history, with science and technology that surpassed anything the current empires possessed. But they had vanished millions of years ago, leaving behind only their testing ground and automated stations that would activate when approached by beings who met certain criteria. The tests were designed to identify species that valued curiosity over caution, adaptation over rigid thinking, and exploration over conquest. Every major galactic empire had failed these tests spectacularly. The Korvac had approached with massive military fleets, seeing the zone as territory to be conquered rather than mysteries to be understood. The Zephyrians had tried to analyze everything from a safe distance, never willing to take the risks necessary for true discovery. The Nethans had attempted to map the region using only their gas-form senses, missing the physical components that were crucial to understanding the Architect technology. But humans were different in ways that even they did not fully understand. When faced with the impossible, they did not retreat or try to overwhelm it with force. Instead, they adapted their thinking and found creative solutions that had never occurred to other species. Roy Chen was proving this every day with the new technologies he was developing by combining human engineering principles with architect science. His latest creation was a shield system that learned from every anomaly it encountered. Traditional alien shields were designed to resist specific types of attacks or environmental hazards, but they failed completely when faced with the unpredictable forces of the Forbidden Zone. Roy's adaptive shields, however, actually grew stronger and more effective each time they were challenged by something new. The system used human pattern recognition algorithms that could identify underlying principles. Even when the surface phenomena seemed completely random, the news of human success was spreading through the galaxy faster than any government could control it. Alien intelligence networks were reporting that humans were not just surviving in the Forbidden Zone, but actually thriving there. Trade routes that had taken the ancient empires centuries to establish were being mapped by human scouts in a matter of weeks. Technologies that alien scientists had declared impossible were being demonstrated by human researchers with equipment built from spare parts and determination. The galactic empires were beginning to panic. For thousands of years, they had maintained their power through control of established trade routes and monopolies on certain types of technology. The idea that a young species like humanity could suddenly gain access to science that surpassed their own was threatening the very foundation of galactic civilization. As they knew it, Zephyrian spy networks were working over time to gather intelligence on human activities in the Forbidden Zone. Their crystal ships were monitoring human communications and trying to understand how such a primitive species could succeed where they had failed. But human encryption methods were proving surprisingly difficult for Zephyrian computers to crack, and the information they were getting painted a picture that their leadership did not want to believe. The Korvac hive mind was experiencing something it had never felt before: doubt about its own superiority. For centuries, they had been confident that their collective intelligence made them the most capable problem-solving civilization in the galaxy. But the reports from the Forbidden Zone showed individual humans making discoveries and solving puzzles that entire Korvac think tanks had been unable to handle. Meanwhile, Dr. Park was making discoveries that would have seemed like magic to earlier generations of scientists. The Architect stations contained libraries of knowledge that covered every aspect of advanced physics, engineering, and space-time manipulation. But the information was not stored in databases or written in languages that could be simply translated. Instead, the knowledge was embedded in interactive systems that required explorers to demonstrate understanding through practical application. This method of knowledge transfer was perfectly suited to human learning styles but completely alien to the rigid educational approaches used by other galactic species. Humans learned by doing, by experimenting, by making mistakes and finding new approaches. The architect systems rewarded this kind of thinking with access to increasingly advanced technologies and scientific principles. Roy Chen found himself understanding concepts that he had never formally studied, as if the architect systems were downloading information directly into his mind through hands-on experience with their technology. His engineering team was developing faster-than-light drive systems that were more efficient than anything currently used in the galaxy, energy weapons that could adapt to any defensive system, and communication devices that could transmit messages instantly across any distance. But perhaps the most important discovery was philosophical rather than technological. The architects had left behind a message explaining why they had created their testing ground. They had been searching for a species that would use advanced knowledge responsibly, that would share discoveries rather than hoarding them, and that would explore the unknown regions of the universe with wonder rather than fear. Admiral Sullivan realized that humanity had been given an opportunity that came along perhaps once in a million years. They had gained access to knowledge and technology that could transform not just human civilization but the entire galaxy. The question now was what they would do with this incredible gift, and whether they could live up to the expectations of the mysterious architects who had chosen them as worthy inheritors of their legacy. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called for the first time in over 3 centuries. Representatives from the 5 major empires gathered in the ancient meeting chamber that floated in neutral space between their territories. The holographic displays showed real-time data from the Forbidden Zone that made even the most experienced alien leaders question everything. They thought they knew about galactic politics, and Power Emperor Zeth of the Korvac Collective spoke first, his mechanical voice carrying the combined thoughts of billions of minds connected across his empire. The readings from human activities in the Forbidden Zone were impossible to ignore or explain away. Ships that should have been destroyed were not only surviving, but establishing permanent outposts in areas that had been considered absolutely deadly for thousands of years. The Zephyrian representative, a living crystal formation that pulsed with angry red light, transmitted its concerns through harmonic frequencies that translated into words of fear and rage. Their empire had lost more ships in the Forbidden Zone than any other civilization, and now humans were flying through those same regions as if the dangers did not even exist. The crystal being demanded immediate action to stop what it saw as a threat to the natural order of galactic civilization. High Counselor, Vec of the Luminary Energy Collective flickered between different wavelengths of light as it spoke. The energy beings had always considered themselves superior to physical species, because they could exist as pure thought and light. But even they had been unable to survive the chaotic forces of the Forbidden Zone. The fact that humans with their primitive solid bodies could succeed where energy beings had failed was deeply disturbing to Luminary philosophy. The Nethan delegate communicated through chemical releases that filled its atmospheric suit with complex molecular messages. As gas-form beings who lived in the atmospheres of giant planets, they had thought their fluid nature would give them advantages in navigating the strange physics of the forbidden region. But human reports suggested that solid matter and rigid thinking were actually disadvantages in that twisted realm of space. Speaker, Coral of the Thalassian Aquatic Empire, expressed her concerns through sonar pulses that created 3-dimensional images in the water-filled chamber she occupied. Her people had built ships designed to handle any environment, from the deepest ocean trenches to the vacuum of space. Yet even their most adaptable vessels had been destroyed by the anomalies that humans seemed to navigate with ease. The debate that followed revealed deep divisions within each empire about how to respond to the human success. Traditionalist factions wanted to use military force to drive humans out of the Forbidden Zone and claim their discoveries for the established powers. Progressive groups argued for cooperation and shared exploration. Economic interests pushed for trade, agreements that would give them access to human-discovered routes and technologies. That Emperor Zeth finally ended the discussion by announcing that the Korvac had already made their decision. A massive fleet led by Admiral Vex was being assembled to enter the Forbidden Zone and establish Korvac control over the region by force. The collective mind of the Korvac Empire had calculated that human success was either a fluke that would not be repeated, or the result of discoveries that rightfully belonged to the older and more advanced civilizations. The other empires quickly fell in line. Behind the Korvac decision, though each had their own reasons for supporting military action. The Zephyrians wanted revenge for their ancient losses in the region. The Luminari believed that energy beings deserved to control any new scientific discoveries. The Nethans saw an opportunity to expand their territory. The Thalassans worried that human expansion would threaten their own trade routes. Within days, the largest alien military force in galactic history was moving toward the Forbidden Zone. Admiral Vex commanded a fleet of over 2,000 ships, representing the combined naval power of all 5 major empires. The vessels were equipped with the most advanced weapons and defensive systems that alien technology could produce. Their mission was to secure the region and capture any human installations or personnel for interrogation. Captain Morrison received word of the approaching fleet while he was supervising the installation of new equipment at an architect station deep within the Forbidden Zone. The ancient automated systems had been sharing increasingly advanced technologies with the human researchers, including defensive systems that could protect installations from almost any conventional attack. But Morrison knew that the approaching alien force was too large to fight directly. Dr. Lisa Park was studying readings from the alien fleet when she made a disturbing discovery. The combined mass of so many ships moving together was creating gravitational distortions that were interacting badly with the existing anomalies in the Forbidden Zone. The alien commanders had no idea that their own presence was destabilizing the delicate balance of forces that made safe navigation possible in certain areas. Roy Chen confirmed her analysis with his own calculations. The alien fleet was flying in tight formations that worked well in normal space, but were extremely dangerous in a region where gravity could shift direction without warning. Their rigid military discipline was forcing them to maintain positions that made them vulnerable to the very anomalies they were trying to avoid. Beth Williams plotted the fleet's course and realized they were heading directly toward one of the most unstable regions she had ever encountered. The area contained overlapping gravitational fields from 3 different black holes that created a maze of deadly forces. Human ships navigated through it by following paths that changed constantly, adapting their course moment by moment as conditions shifted, but a large fleet following predetermined formations would be torn apart by forces they could not predict or avoid. Morrison faced a decision that would define not just his own career, but the future relationship between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. He could let the alien fleet fly into destruction and eliminate a massive military threat to human expansion, or he could try to warn them and possibly save thousands of lives. Even though those same beings were coming to attack his people, the answer came to him as he remembered the lessons he had learned from the architect systems. The ancient civilization had valued wisdom and compassion above military power. They had created their tests not to identify the strongest species, but to find those who would use advanced knowledge responsibly. If humanity was going to prove worthy of the architect's legacy, they had to demonstrate that they could rise above the fear and aggression that had limited other civilizations. Morrison ordered the New Horizon to intercept the alien fleet before it could enter the most dangerous part of the anomaly field. His ship was vastly outnumbered and outgunned, but he flew directly toward Admiral Vex's flagship with weapons powered down and communication channels open. The message he broadcast was simple and direct. The alien fleet was flying into a trap that would destroy them all unless they changed course. Immediately, Admiral Vex responded with suspicion and contempt. The Korvac commander accused Morrison of trying to trick them into retreating so that humans could keep their stolen discoveries. He ordered his fleet to maintain course and prepared to destroy the New Horizon for interfering with their mission. But as his ships moved deeper into the anomaly field, the gravitational forces began to tear his formations apart exactly as Dr. Park had predicted. The destruction was swift and terrible. Ships that had survived countless battles across the galaxy were crushed like toys by forces they could not comprehend or resist. Admiral Vex watched in horror as his mighty fleet was scattered and broken by the same phenomena that had destroyed the ancient Korvac expeditions centuries earlier. In minutes, the pride of 5 galactic empires was reduced to wreckage and desperate survivors struggling to escape the cosmic forces that were pulling them toward destruction. Morrison did not hesitate. Despite facing enemies who had come to destroy his people, he ordered rescue operations to begin immediately. Human ships that could navigate the dangerous region safely moved in to save alien survivors from certain death. The New Horizon itself took on hundreds of refugees from species that had considered humans inferior just hours before. In the face of disaster, Captain Morrison proved that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their courage, but their willingness to show compassion, even to their enemies. The survivors of the Great Fleet disaster returned to their home empires carrying stories that shook the foundations of galactic civilization. Admiral Vex himself stood before the Korvac collective leadership, his usual mechanical confidence replaced by something the hive mind had never experienced from one of its commanders: humility. He spoke of humans who had risked their lives to save enemies, of compassion shown in the face of hostility, and of a species that seemed to understand things about the universe that the collective mind could not grasp. Similar scenes played out across all the major empires as rescued personnel shared their experiences. Zephyrian crystal beings who had been saved by human rescue teams spoke of warmth and kindness from creatures they had previously dismissed as primitive carbon-based life forms. Luminary energy beings flickered with new patterns as they tried to process the concept of physical beings who could navigate spaces where pure energy could not survive. Nethan gas form entities released chemical signatures of confusion and wonder as they described humans who had shared their food and medical supplies with aliens whose biology they barely understood. The most profound impact came from the youngest members of each rescued crew. While their elders struggled to maintain old prejudices and assumptions, the younger aliens embraced what they had learned from their human rescuers. They spoke openly about wanting to understand human methods of exploration and problem-solving. Some even requested permission to study alongside human researchers, an idea that would have been unthinkable just months before. Dr. Lisa Park found herself at the center of a scientific revolution that was spreading across the galaxy. Her research into architect technology had unlocked principles of physics that made faster-than-light travel safer and more efficient than ever before. But instead of keeping these discoveries secret, she had begun sharing her findings with alien scientists who approached her with genuine curiosity rather than demands for information. Breakthrough technologies she had developed were solving problems that had plagued galactic civilization for millennia. Energy generation systems based on architect principles could power entire star systems without the environmental damage caused by traditional methods. Transportation networks using stabilized wormholes could connect distant regions of the galaxy in ways that had seemed impossible before. Communication systems that operated outside normal spacetime could transmit messages instantly, across any distance. But Dr. Park insisted that these technologies should not be controlled by any single species or government. Working with Admiral Kate Sullivan, she proposed something that had never been attempted in galactic history: a cooperative alliance dedicated to peaceful exploration rather than territorial expansion or economic dominance. The Frontier Alliance would be open to any species or civilization that committed to sharing discoveries and supporting joint exploration missions. The proposal divided every major empire as progressive and traditionalist factions fought for control of their government's responses. On Korvac Prime, younger members of the collective began questioning the hive mind's assumptions about superiority and conquest. They argued that the disaster in the Forbidden Zone proved that rigid thinking and overwhelming force were not always the best solutions to complex problems. Among the Zephyrians, crystal formations that had never agreed on anything began harmonizing around the idea that cooperation might be more valuable than competition. Their ancient rivalry with other empires had cost them countless ships and resources over the centuries, while humans had achieved more in months through collaboration and creative thinking. The Luminary Energy Collective experienced something unprecedented as individual members began expressing personal opinions rather than speaking with the unified voice of their species. Some argued for maintaining their isolation and superiority, while others pushed for engagement with the alliance that humans were proposing. The first empire to officially join the Frontier Alliance was the Luminari, but not for the reasons anyone expected. A faction of younger energy beings had been studying human rescue operations and realized that physical matter and energy could work together in ways their species had never considered. They saw the alliance as an opportunity to learn new forms of existence and exploration that pure energy beings could not discover on their own. Their decision shocked the other empires and accelerated the political changes that were already beginning throughout galactic civilization. Within the Korvac collective, rebel cells began operating independently of the hive mind for the first time in their species' history. Zephyrian crystal formations started experimenting with individual decision-making rather than harmonic consensus. Nethan gas-form entities began questioning whether their fluid nature really made them superior to solid matter beings. Captain Morrison, now promoted to admiral for his actions during the fleet crisis, found himself leading the most diverse exploration force in galactic history. His new flagship carried crews from every major species as they prepared for humanity's most ambitious mission yet. An expedition to the galactic core where architect records indicated even greater mysteries waited to be discovered. The joint species crew took months to learn how to work together effectively. Humans had to adjust their informal communication style to accommodate species that relied on harmonic frequencies, chemical signals, or pure electromagnetic transmission. Alien crew members struggled to understand human concepts like intuition, humor, and the willingness to take risks based on incomplete information. But gradually, the diverse crew began to function as a unified team rather than a collection of separate species working in parallel. Korvac collective thinking combined with human creativity to solve navigation problems that neither could handle alone. Zephyrian harmonic analysis enhanced human pattern recognition to identify safe passages through cosmic phenomena. Luminary energy manipulation worked with human engineering to create hybrid technologies that surpassed anything either species could build independently. The expedition to the galactic core discovered wonders that exceeded even the most optimistic predictions. The ancient architect civilization had built a massive installation around the central black hole that served as both a research station and a gateway to other galaxies. The facility contained libraries of knowledge that covered not just advanced science and technology, but philosophy, art, and the accumulated wisdom of countless species that had passed the architect's tests over millions of years. But the most important discovery was not technological, but social. The architects had left behind a message explaining that their ultimate goal was not to find a single species worthy of their knowledge, but to guide younger civilizations toward cooperation and mutual understanding. They had created the Forbidden Zone not as a barrier but as a bridge, a place where different species could learn to work together by facing challenges that no single civilization could overcome alone. The message revealed that humanity had not succeeded in the Forbidden Zone because they were superior to other species, but because they had approached the unknown with the right attitude. The architects had been waiting not for conquerors or scientists, but for explorers who would share their discoveries and help other species grow rather than dominating them. Admiral Morrison stood in the command center of the Galactic Core facility, surrounded by beings from dozens of different species who had joined the Frontier Alliance over the past year. Through the massive viewing windows, he could see ships from across the galaxy approaching the ancient station with wonder rather than fear. Children from every known species were learning together at academies that had been established throughout former Forbidden Zone, studying star charts of unexplored regions with excitement rather than terror. The phrase that had once struck fear into the hearts of every galactic empire, impossible to navigate, had become a call to adventure for the new generation of explorers. Young beings from species that had been enemies for millennia now worked side by side, planning expeditions to distant galaxies and preparing to face whatever unknowns they might discover there. Morrison smiled as he watched a group of mixed-species cadets arguing enthusiastically about the best approach to mapping a newly discovered cluster of anomalous stars. They showed no fear of the unknown, no hesitation about working with beings who looked and thought differently than themselves. They had learned the lesson that humanity had taught the galaxy, that the greatest frontiers were not physical regions of space, but the boundaries between different ways of thinking and exploring. The unknown no longer inspired fear across the galaxy. Instead, it had become humanity's greatest gift to galactic civilization, the courage to embrace mystery as an opportunity for discovery, rather than a threat to be avoided. The empires that had once ruled through intimidation and isolation were transforming into something new, something better than what they had been before humans showed them that the universe was not a place to be conquered, but a frontier to be explored together.